I was born and raised right here in Sturgeon Bay. I lived here all my life with the exception of a year and a half in college and 2 years in the Army. Otherwise, this has been home my whole life, and I could never call another place home. Mainly, not only because I was born here, not only because my family is here, but because I love Door County. I love the water. I love boats. I love the scenery. I'm a photographer by hobby, and you can't find a nicer place to take pictures than Door County. What was it like in Door County going? When I was first born, there were no TVs. My folks bought the first TV in the neighborhood, and ours was the gathering place for all the neighborhood kids. We'd sit in front of that TV, and there was only one channel. Channel 2 was the only one on the air, or that we could pick up. And we'd sit and we'd watch. We were just amazed at, and it was black and white, obviously, and it was just like winter because it was snow. It wasn't the clear pictures like you have today with the digital and all this and that. So that was one thing. Mostly for games, we played outside every night. That it was warm, that it was decent. We made our own games. We had a game called Steal the Stone. Don't remember what the rules were. I remember there was a pile of 3 stones on each side, and instead of getting the ball to the other side, you had to get over and steal stones from the other side. But again, I don't remember rules. We made up our own games. We made our own fun. We had to. You know, half the games that you buy in the store nowadays, they weren't. I mean, you didn't find that stuff. The clothing was a whole lot different. We didn't have the fancy nylon with the quilted linings and the leather gloves and all that. They were wool suits, wool pants, heavy knitted wool long johns. That's what kept you warm. We had galoshes, buckle galoshes, but there was no insulation on them. They're just to keep the water out. That was the whole idea there. When I was in kindergarten, I went to kindergarten at Westside School over there. The school up on the building on the hill that is empty now. That's where I went through kindergarten through 6th grade. When I was in 1st grade was the last year Sturgeon Bay had public transportation, public buses running the cities. And a friend of mine, a buddy of mine, a classmate of mine, who also lived on the west side, it was a big thrill for us to get out of school, and that public transportation bus would stop out in front of the school building. We'd give the bus driver a nickel, and we could make the full circle on the west side, and then he'd drop us off before he'd come across on this side. That was a big deal, a lot of fun. Last time bus transportation in Sturgeon Bay, I guess it was non-economical anymore. It didn't pay for them to do that. The school buses ran, but I was never allowed to ride the bus. I was too close to the school on that side of the bay, and I had no reason to come across because I went to school over there, so that was out. But that was in the time when there was no Southern Door School, so all of the farm kids in Door County bused into Sturgeon Bay and went to school in the city. So the bus drivers wanted to, how do I say this? Well, they had to get all the farm kids, all the country kids rode the buses. And so they were limited as to how many city kids they could pick up. And if you lived within so many blocks or distance or miles from the school, you got your own way there. So the ones that lived farther away were allowed to ride the bus. That was the change. And never in my whole life did I ride a school bus to school in Sturgeon Bay. Even when I come to this side of me, even when I was in high school, couldn't do it. It wasn't allowed for whatever reason. So, but we were always lucky. We were always lucky enough to find somebody from the west side who was coming to this side that we could ride with. For some years we rode with teachers, some years we rode with other students, older than us obviously, who had license. My oldest memory of the Sturgeon Bay. When I was born, my parents lived on a house on Larch Street, which is when you go off the west end of the Michigan Street Bridge and take the first right. That is Larch Street. The Bridgeport is on the right now. Okay, you would go past Bridgeport to the stop sign and then go straight across Lansing. And in that next block, there was a big old house, and they rented the upstairs. And I was born when they lived there, and my next oldest brother was also born while we lived there. And the house was owned by an elderly lady who lived downstairs with her mother, and we called them both Grandma because they were quite a bit older than we kids were. But that's my first recollection of Sturgeon Bay. Vivid memory. Oh my, I got lots of them. Back in 1955, my dad was a fisherman, not for sport, not by trade. It wasn't his occupation, but he loved to fish. That was his favorite sport. And he generally always had a boat for fishing. And in 1955, some friends of his came to visit us from Lower Michigan, and my dad and his friend from Michigan and I were sitting in the boat fishing out off of Pot Park, middle of summer, nice summer hot day, and my dad says, oh my gosh, he says, we've got to get to Sturgeon Bay. He says, there's a storm coming. And we looked up and we couldn't see Sturgeon Bay. It was covered with black cloud. I mean covered. So we pulled up the fishing lines, we pulled up the anchors, and he got the engine started, and we headed for Sturgeon Bay, and he said, we ain't going to make it. So he did a right turn, and we beached the boat on the beach, on the stones at Pot Park. Took the motor off the boat, laid it on the ground, tipped the boat upside down over the motor, and we lashed it down to trees with line, and we ran for the men's room, and before we got there, we were wet. And that was when it was a tornado came through. And it took the steeple off of the Corpus Christi Church, the old one that's no longer standing. It did damage to the Bayview Lutheran Church, which is just a couple of blocks the other way from where we live. It tore a building down up on the County Trunk U. It was a cement block building that was just under construction. It was going to be an electrical shop. They never did open it up. That was demolished. Lines down, branches down, all kinds of damage. Nobody was killed as far as I can recall, but there was all kinds of damage. But I'll never forget, looking up from the boat and you couldn't see Sturgeon Bay, and knew it was big time storm. How has it changed? Well, when I was first born, we only had two bridges in town. The Michigan Street Bridge and the old railroad bridge. And I loved them both because they're both picturesque, and again, I'm a photographer by hobby. And when they came in years later and put the bypass bridge in, we thought, oh my, we are really getting big now. We've got two car bridges in town. I said, one goes out, you can always use the other one. And there were times when the Michigan Street Bridge went out and you couldn't use it. One time a boat hit it, and mechanical failures, that stuff happens. And when we got the third bridge, the Maple to Oregon, I said, wow, we're getting that just like Green Bay now. We're a three-bridge town, we're getting big time. That's the biggest memory that I can remember, for the changes in the city.